In the previous issue, Flash fights a metahuman capable of controlling lightning. Grodd, Wally's friend, is missing, and his location is pinpointed in an area consumed by a massive lightning storm. Flash decides to run into the storm, where he is struck by lightning. Inside the storm, we are introduced to a man who controls the lightning, declaring that he is not going back. Wally, trying to clarify, asks where, Fort Fox, and whether the man is from Project Olympus. But the man only repeats, "I'm not going back," striking Kid Flash with lightning again. The man then reveals that Barry Allen did this to him. Kid Flash replies that he's also from Fort Fox, saying they did this to him, Barry Allen did. In the next issue, we learn how Barry Allen became involved with Fort Fox. Barry works at Keystone University. He's late for class, explaining that a faculty meeting ran over. He jokes that despite popular theories of quantum superposition, he can't be in two places at once, but the class doesn't respond. He begins teaching about breakthroughs in superconductivity in its current research, but he completely loses the students' attention. After all, who cares about how a material conducts electricity with zero resistance when cooled below a certain critical temperature? Except for one person, the blonde woman with the strange smile. Later, in his office, the same woman who had been auditing his class enters and tells Barry she's a huge fan of his work. She introduces herself as Eleanor Thon. She explains that she's been following his research on quantum simulation and molecular transfer since his time at Princeton. Barry brushes it off as something from long ago. Eleanor laments that his research was shut down when he was on the verge of a major breakthrough. She offers Barry a chance not only to continue his research, but to make discoveries beyond his imagination. Barry declines, saying his research days are over and that he wouldn't continue even if he had the funding. But Dr. Thon sees through the lie. She tells him that it's just what he says to justify wasting his time and talent at a second-rate school. Discovery, she says, is the most intoxicating drug there is, and Barry is a recovering addict. After some convincing, Barry agrees to give her one day of his life and visits Fort Fox. Dr. Thon shows Barry the facility and her grandfather's life's work. Barry admits he's never heard of Dr. Eobard Thon, which doesn't surprise Eleanor. She tells Barry that her grandfather was literally erased from history. Eleanor tells Barry that during the height of World War II, the US commissioned a secret project operating in the shadows of Oppenheimer's Trinity test, codenamed Blue Trinity. Her grandfather was the lead physicist and was on the verge of making contact with another dimension of pure exotic energy. His theories were far beyond his time, and his methods were questionable. According to her grandfather, a voice was calling to him from this other world. It would have been easy to dismiss his claims, but what happened next justified everything. One night, Thon entered the lab without authorization. A soldier named Garrick tried to stop him, but Thon was focused on making history. He had finally accessed the Blue Trinity. Officer Garrick stood back nervously as Thon reached toward the light. Overcome by fear, Garrick tried to shut down the machine and close the portal, but was thrown into the void by Thon. The reaction caused an explosion, engulfing Thon and erasing him from history. Back to the present day, Eleanor tells Barry that most of her grandfather's journals were salvaged before the military shut everything down. She's been trying to fill in the blanks from the missing pieces, but Barry's attention drifts to an equation written on the green board. He notices it's wrong and corrects it, and just like that, he becomes part of the team at Fort Fox. After 2 years at the facility, Eleanor introduces Barry to Colonel Rudy West, who has arrived with his son Wally to lead the military division of their project. Barry barely looks up. His attention is still on his work. He voices concern that she's compromising his autonomy. Eleanor insists that this is the only way to keep their research alive. Their argument escalates. Barry accuses her of turning science into weaponry. Eleanor counters that this is the price of freedom. What they're doing is beyond government comprehension. If giving the military weapons buys them the freedom to explore, then so be it. Her tone is steady, her conviction unwavering. Eleanor shifts the conversation back to the experiment. She asks about the first trial. Barry replies that he's almost ready. The suits, the calibration, the readings, everything will be in place by week's end. For the first time in years, there's excitement in his voice. But Eleanor interrupts. She's already made a decision. Barry won't be leading the first test team. The words hit him harder than expected. She reminds him of her grandfather, the cost of unchecked ambition. Barry is too important to risk. Once the suits are proven safe, she promises they'll enter the field together. As Barry steps out into the dim evening light, a guard bids him goodnight, but Barry's response is distant. Inside the mess hall, soldiers gather in small groups, trading jokes or sitting in silence. Barry enters wearing his lab coat. A few glance his way, but he pays no attention. He spots a red-haired teenager sitting alone in the corner. Barry pauses, then approaches. The resemblance is unmistakable. Wally West, Colonel West's son. Barry jokes about the Colonel's seriousness, earning a small smile from the boy. When he asks about Wally's story, the teen admits that he doesn't know what to do with himself on the base, his voice carrying the weariness of someone uprooted too often. Barry listens quietly, understanding. He shares that he never stayed in one place long either, not until college. When he mentions MIT, Wally's eyes widen with surprise and admiration. For a moment, he forgets his frustration. When Barry asks what interests him, he hesitates, then admits music. His voice changes when he says it, more alive, less guarded. Barry smiles and begins to explain how everything in the universe connects to patterns, structure, and math. Wally grins and calls Barry weird, not insultingly, just honestly. Barry chuckles and takes it in stride. As their conversation ends, Barry tells Wally he'll see him around and heads back to the lab. There, the first full test of the Stillpoint experiment is about to begin. Barry's tone is calm but firm as he oversees the final checks. Eleanor stands beside him, composed and confident, eyes fixed on the portal. The team's voices echo through the comms, confirming readiness. Barry and Eleanor watch as the team crosses the threshold. As the last operative disappears into the red light, Barry murmurs under his breath, not comfort, but calculation. To him, success isn't luck, it's mathematics, precision, probability. As the three explorers step into the alien landscape, Barry and Eleanor monitor through the live feed. Barry leans forward, muttering as he lists the data they need. Soil composition, atmospheric density, radiation levels. His excitement grows by the second. Out in the field, one of the explorers pauses. His voice trembles over the comms as he stares at the red currents rippling through the sky. Then, emerging from the haze, they see it. A massive structure, half buried and alien in design, its geometry sharp and deliberate. Realization settles like a cold weight in their chests. They are not the first to set foot here. Back at the facility, the alien craft looms inside a massive containment hangar. The project has expanded. The military's presence is undeniable now. Eleanor briefs Barry clinically. Trials with lesser subjects have yielded results, and human trials are next. To her, it's progress. To Barry, it's corruption. He argues that this is not what he signed up for. The project was meant to uncover truth, not build weapons. She fires back that every compromise she's made has been to preserve her grandfather's legacy, to prevent another catastrophe. Barry stands alone before the chamber, drawn to it by something he can't explain. Suddenly, a voice calls his name, stretching it, echoing across worlds. The whisper becomes a scream. A figure materializes within the storm, flickering between matter and light. It's the same energy signature from the storm that took Jay Garrick decades ago, but now it's speaking. Panicked, the man cries out, begging Barry to stop whatever he's planning. As his body begins to disintegrate, he forces out one final revelation. It must be Wally West. Here's what the story seems to be setting up. At this stage, Wally doesn't have powers. He's still just Colonel West's son, curious, emotional, and slightly adrift. But when the man in the storm screams, "It must be Wally West," it signals that Wally is destined to be the next link in the chain. The storm, or the red matter, is somehow aware of him, almost calling to him through time. Given what we've seen of Barry so far, his fascination with Thawne's journals, his growing obsession, and his disregard for warnings, it's likely Barry will interpret this not as a warning, but as a directive. He'll believe that the energy has chosen Wally and that it's his duty to fulfill that